И 84 тысяч сәтсіз была без цель скоро за военкомате, вы хауса уж добровольно шаш хауса на вас видал.
Нам надо объявлять мобилизацию. Нам надо готовить заранее минимум 500 тысяч, а так реально 1 миллион человек.
Его били током.
They electrocuted him, he didn't sign the contract, then they electrocuted him again.
So how is that voluntary? Nobody signed any contracts. It was all done for us.
Он был по факту.
In fact, he was kidnapped after being accused of having an affair with a married woman.
They set up a date, and he shows up for it. But there, he's already being met by the police.
Почему-то этих людей
For some reason, they think these people can just be sent into the meat grinder to fight in Ukraine.
войну в Украину.
Я заявляем официально, самые горячие точки в Украине, государстве и республике будут занимать именно чеченские бойцы.
Since the start of the war in Ukraine, Ramzan Kadyrov has regularly reported that tens of thousands of volunteers from the Republic have been sent to the front. These claims are accompanied by hundreds of videos showing fighters from Chechnya posing for the camera or fearlessly repelling attacks by invisible enemies. But while Kadyrov's so-called TikTok troops rack up views online, in reality, the so-called volunteers in Chechnya are being forced into the Akhmat units through threats and torture.
На сегодняшний день из Чеченской республики в зону проведения СВО направлено 60 344 бойца, в том числе 22 064 добровольца.
According to human rights defenders, even though these figures are heavily inflated, and even though many of Kadyrov's men are stationed behind the lines, the Akhmat units still constantly need new recruits. Just in the first year of the war, Kadyrov created 5 new units. In 2023, 3 more were added. And in March 2025, the 9th unit was formed, the Akhmat Kavkaz Regiment.
Мы план перевыполнили. Даже если будет мобилизация, то мы 254% удовольны. План перевыполнен, и поэтому желающих у нас много.
Мы начали наблюдать, что в каждом районе
We started noticing that in every district of Chechnya, there was an order to find victims, or candidates, as they called those victims.
In the past, people could be sent to the volunteer ranks for using illegal substances, breaking traffic laws, or simply drinking alcohol. Now, Chechen police have moved on to open entrapment, most often involving women.
Был звонок от родной сестры.
I got a call from my sister saying that my brother had been kidnapped by police officers. He was detained by men in an unmarked car, dressed in civilian clothes, just ordinary-looking people. Several men forced him into the car.
Muhammad is the youngest son in the family. He's afraid to show his face and asks not to reveal his real name. He contacted the newsroom after Chechen police kidnapped his older brother, Anzor, in broad daylight and in front of witnesses.
И люди не знали из-за чего.
People didn't know why he was abducted. They thought that since I'm relatively more active and had shown some political activity online, they took him as revenge against me. That's what we assumed. My brother by nature is a cautious, apolitical person.
Осторожный, аполитичный.
Ansor lived in Chechnya with his wife, worked in home construction, and tried to stay away from political discussions. One day in the fall of 2024, he got a message on Instagram from an unfamiliar girl.
У них до этого момента
Before that, they had exchanged a few messages and chatted a bit.
носили.
The texts may have been of a romantic nature.
A few weeks later, the girl confessed to Anzor that she was married, but very unhappy.
сообщила, что
After the girl said she was supposedly married, or maybe she really was,
брат перестал с ней контактировать и попросил...
my brother cut off contact and asked her not to reach out again for moral reasons.
Следовательно,
Still, she insisted on continuing to talk,
в контексте, какая она несчастная, замужняя.
saying how unhappy she was in her marriage, how miserable her life was, and how she lacked everything. Later, he was accused of allegedly seducing a married woman.
According to activists from the Chechen opposition movement, NIYSO, such cases have become more frequent across the republic, with an ever wider range of setup schemes.
Lately, there have been more and more of these cases where a supposed acquaintance with a girl takes place. The meeting could happen by chance on the street. She might start flirting with him, or over the phone, without even seeing each other. She calls, they start talking, get closer, and she even starts sending him photos and so on. Then, a date is arranged, and when he shows up, law enforcement officers are already waiting with a ready-made accusation that he'd allegedly been talking to an underage girl.
Activists from NISO say Musa found himself in a similar situation. In March 2024, he was driving from Grozny to his village and agreed to give a young couple a lift. The girl sat in the back, the guy next to him. Almost immediately, the police stopped them.
The man who had been sitting in the front seat got out and moved into a civilian car that was already parked where we were stopped. The police came over and, as usual, asked to see my documents and those of the girl who stayed in the car. Then they took both of us out and began to search us. In the back of the driver's seat, they found some pills. I was baffled. I began to deny that they were mine. But the girl started crying and said that they were ours, that we were on our way to an apartment to have fun.
Other versions were that he had allegedly been communicating with a married woman. That is strictly condemned here. For that, they could simply kill him. In other words, people themselves might kill him, under the pretext that she was married. And then, they start carrying out other procedures with him. They might beat him, assault him. And to make him frightened, to make him believe the story, they say the husband has identified her.
Не обладали информацией, где он. На третий...
For 2 days, we had no information about where he was. On the third day, if my memory serves, we already understood exactly which holding facility he was in. They put him in some basement room directly in the building, attached wires to his fingers and earlobes, and connected them to a handheld electric generator with, like, a crank. I don't know what people call it locally. They electrocuted him. He didn't sign the contract. Then, they electrocuted him again and isolated him. He was in a kind of psychological isolation. They hinted that the wife's relatives wanted to kill him. His opportunity to survive was to go fight in Ukraine. They presented this as a way to avoid trouble. They played the role of the good cop. We want to help you.
In mid-2023, the mother of one of the girls turned to NISO. Her 16-year-old daughter was detained by security forces and, under threats and torture, was forced to write messages to men and participate in entrapment of potential recruits.
At home, the daughter cried she could not say a word. Then she showed bruises and said she had been badly beaten and even tortured with electricity. Later, it turned out that under torture, they forced her to incriminate herself on camera, to confess to filthy, immoral acts. Then they threatened that the video would be leaked on all social networks. The officers demanded that the daughter contact certain religious young men and frame them under charges of extremism and for relations with a minor. They said they would provide the phone numbers of the targets themselves.
Some girls help the security forces voluntarily. Others don't fully understand what they are taking part in.
They lure people with money. They may say it to them directly, or they may not say it outright. They might say, "We're trying to test the person." So the girl doesn't necessarily have to be told the plan. She herself may not even know what she's really doing.
Ansor spent several days in the holding facility. During that time, the authorities demanded that he sign a contract. They took him to the bank, conducted a medical exam, and were already preparing to send him to the military base in Gudermes.
There were other people there who allegedly had done something wrong and were also awaiting their contract, the signing of a contract. There was a young guy, about 18 to 19 years old. I also noticed older men, at least one man, roughly in his 40s or around 50. And this boy noticed him and appealed to him. "Uncle, why are you putting up with this? Sign the contract. There's no point, because they'll get what they want from us anyway. They'll torture us. It's better to sign now than to let yourself be tormented so much."
Any person who ends up with them, not because they committed a crime, but simply because they were simply taken in for questioning, may start to be extorted for ransom. Either we'll send this person to Ukraine, or you give us money.
Me and other relatives, we actively searched for people we could contact, people who have connections within these agencies, to get them out of there.
They ask for amounts that any family can raise, say around 300,000, 500,000, 700,000 rubles, and, accordingly, they make money this way.
They were actually not interested in us buying him back. Right now, their greater interest is sending people to war. Nothing worked for us until, after a week, through distant relatives, we reached a person in a relatively more senior position. And this person offered a sum to the head of the holding facility. After some hesitation, they agreed to it.
By our estimate, the people who have been repressed without cause, recruited or forcibly sent to Ukraine, their stories number in the thousands. Each has their own story, different ones, ranging from traffic accidents to women.
If someone messed up in the Chechen Republic, drove without a license, drank alcohol, used narcotics, if that was the case, such people could be punished. And as a punishment, they would be turned into servicemen. Our religion forbids drinking, smoking, and taking alcohol or narcotics.
In 2023, Mansour joined a riot police unit of the Rosgvardia in Chechnya after he received a draft notice. He claims his unit only cordoned off roads, while illegal recruitment was often practiced by his colleagues from the Interior Ministry.
In my unit, there were no such cases. We do somewhat different work. The Interior Ministry deals with this. Regular patrol officers handle it.
According to Abu Bakirov from NISO, in group chats and message threads, Chechen security forces often suggested candidates to each other for recruitment so colleagues could meet their quotas. Some of those chats were leaked to activists.
They literally sell people. We've seen messages that plainly offer people for 100,000 or 200,000 rubles each. For example, I found a candidate and I can sell him. Just sell him to another officer so that he can meet his quota.
They force people to sign the contract and send them to the war as punishment. Before, of course, there were administrative fines, and cases could even reach criminal charges, as is provided for by the law. For alcohol, the punishment was merely a promise not to drink. And that was that. They sent you home.
Before joining the Rosgvardia, Mansour lived in Yeysk, Krasnodar Krai, and worked as a beach manager on the Sea of Azov. He later had to return to Chechnya, but that did not save him from the war. 9 months later, he was forcibly transferred to the Akhmat Chechnya regiment and sent to guard the border in Kursk region.
None of us signed a contract. It was all done for us, and that's it. When the elder says so, that's what we do. There's no other option. We have our own laws in the Chechen Republic.
On August 8, 2024, during a Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk region, Mansour, together with his comrades and several conscripts, was taken prisoner.
I never imagined I would become a participant in this war. Any sane person would say this is an unjust war. Our guys, who are in Chechnya, if they are told to sign a contract, then, you understand, our mentality is different. If you're told to do something, you will do it no matter what. We can't run away like cowards.
Mohammed, like Mansour, did not live in Chechnya when he was summoned to the draft office.
I was registered in one of the Russian regions. I worked as a contractor, signing contracts for an outsourcing company. I used to visit my family in Chechnya, travel around Eastern Europe and other countries, generally living a balanced life, taking various courses and working on self-improvement.
After 4 days of thought, he decided to leave Russia, bringing his family with him.
What's the point of staying if they won't let me remain here? In other words, they'll send me to the war sooner or later, one way or another. That thought made me leave. I understood this wouldn't end soon, and I never wanted to die for Putin's imperial ambitions. Since they came to power, there wasn't a day when I supported them. With that attitude, of course it was unacceptable for me to fight. If such a choice were put before me, I'd rather just let them kill me.
Anyone living in the Republic right now is at risk.
Mohammed has now applied for asylum in a Western country, but the chances of getting a positive response for a draft dodger from Russia are quite low at the moment. He has already been rejected and is trying to appeal.
I used to have a side job translating texts from English. Now there's no side work, but I'm focused on studying because I want to start working somewhere in my field by September and keep developing in that direction.
Mohammed's brother Anzor left Chechnya but does not want to leave Russia.
He's not planning to yet because he knows how difficult the process is. And if our parents ever need help or something happens, he wants to be there for them.
There's no need for mobilization there. The whole population is already mobilized. If you look at Chechnya, it's basically a concentration camp full of prisoners. There's no mobilization like that anywhere. Not in Russia, not in Moscow, not in Perm, not in Dagestan, nowhere. You won't find that kind of mobilization anywhere but in Chechnya.
The Insider's journalists continue their work despite pressure from Russian authorities. You can support them by liking this video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to our channel. If you'd like to further support their efforts, consider making a donation by clicking the link in the description below.